Good evening. Welcome to another live learning journey, a part of the healing journey, counseling and consulting. We want to welcome you tonight. We're very excited to be here with you to help you along this long journey. We're on the journey with you. We're teaching you, we're educating you, we're supporting you, and that is very important. Lee, would you like to say good evening?
Good evening, everyone out there in Facebook land. We're just so glad to see you again, and it's so wonderful to be with you again. We have such good times with the our Facebook Live, and it just seems like it's never enough. So we have to keep coming back for more and more and more, drinking at the fountain, so that we can learn things, so that we can go and grow along the way. We're transparent. Lynn and I will tell you anything that's going on with us, and we
Yeah.
hope that you feel comfortable enough to share with us so that we can help each other as we grow with wisdom and knowledge along the way. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here for us each and every time.
Yes, we are part of our lessons learned. When it happened to me and it happened to Lee with our loved ones, the first thing we said is, we never want this to happen again to another loved one. So, this was our inspiration, and God's purpose for our life is to start this group of support where we can help you with mental health. We can help you taking you through the process. We have preferred lawyers, which we have one on tonight, and he's going to talk about some important things that are so important for you to know, because you never know when it might be on your doorstep next. Remember, you can always reach out to us. We are a nonprofit organization. So if you'd like to make a donation to help us so we can help others, please go to ourlessonslearned.org, and there is a QR code that you can just press on to make a donation. We certainly appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate you for allowing us into your lives to support you. And we appreciate you for supporting us on this journey. So, without further delay, I want to introduce you to attorney Pete Diamaduros. He is in South Carolina, and you all know that is our next move. We're going to branch this out to a national organization, and he's going to talk about some important things this evening. Attorney Gurley talked about our rights and things of that nature, but he's going to talk about from more of a perspective of the new cash bail. He's going to also talk about um, taking a
Please.
plea deal, because, and remember, it's different for every state. But
Yes,
he's
it
going to
is.
talk about from his knowledge. He's very knowledgeable. He has been practicing since 1986. He has been a Supreme Court commissioned lawyer. He's a Rotary Club member. He is just a good friend of Lee, and we just certainly appreciate him and welcome him and appreciate his knowledge. So, as he gives you the knowledge, remember, knowledge is power. So we want you to listen to what he's going to say, and it can help you or maybe help a loved one that you know that's going through. So, welcome, attorney. And we just want to welcome you and thank you again for volunteering and helping us out.
Well, thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah.
Um, I really want to share some stuff. I've talked to Lee about this a little bit, and the three of us just spoke. I'm going to start with the basics, okay? Because as y'all know, if you've never been in this situation, you don't even know where to start.
Yes.
Um, so I'm going to say if you have a child or a family member that gets in trouble in another town, another state, your best resource is usually to go to your personal attorney, who may be able to make contacts with that state to get you involved with the correct lawyer, if you want to say that. I had a friend years ago that got caught. He was actually someone I hunted in a club with, so I mean, it was a good acquaintance. And he calls me and tells me that he was arrested and bonded out on a very large bond, and he was growing marijuana in his basement. And he was a horticulture graduate from North Carolina State, so that kind of made sense that he would want to grow his own marijuana, which made no sense to me. But he was telling me he wanted to choose a lawyer that he had found in a phone book, and their advertisement was a huge marijuana leaf talking about legalizing marijuana, and he was a 420 lawyer for smoking pot day. And I was like, This makes absolutely no sense. And I found out that this particular lawyer who run for the local prosecutor's office had been beaten about 80% to 20%. And I said, that's really who you want to hire? This is a guy that's not going to be of help to you. So I made a few calls for him, found a lawyer that was really good, and this guy avoided going to federal prison. I think just by picking the right lawyer. So always call your local lawyer first and let him fish out, and don't go looking at ads on the internet. Um, we all know that we have a right to get a bail, a bond, a cash bond, a surety bond, a PR bond. We're going to start with the basics. When somebody gets arrested, they're in jail. They want to get out of jail. They're going to walk up in front of, in most states, a magistrate level or municipal level judge. A lot of those don't have to have anything but a high school education. In some states, a college education. They're not lawyers mostly. Some are. You're going to you really have the right to a PR bond, a personal recognizance. Sign yourself out. You're a good person in town. You've been there for a long time, and you maybe haven't been involved in a bunch of stuff in the past. Let me tell you what, in our state, I'm going to read these things, and it's funny. Put glasses on for this. Matters to be considered by a magistrate level judge setting your bond. It says that they're going to look at the offense charged, obviously. If you're a capital offense, some murders, some rapes, these kind of things, or sentences that carry life in prison, you're going to have to go to a higher level judge to even see if you can get a bond. But the law says the judge may look at your family ties to the community, your employment history, your financial resources, your character, your mental condition. It's always good to have a mental health counselor if you can get them on board early. Your length of residency in that community, your convictions, and any record that you may have in the past of having avoided a court hearing, where you might have tried to run or just didn't want to appear. That's what the court may look at. But what it says they must consider is your criminal record, current pending charges if you have any, and any incident reports. And that rules of evidence don't apply. So you can get all kind of hearsay stuff in. So if you can get lucky enough to have a lawyer, and I don't personally go do bonds. I would do it for someone's friend if they call me and said, my son's arrested, we're going to hire you. I'll go do it, but I'm not going to go. And most lawyers aren't going to get paid a nominal fee to run set a bond, even though it's so important at that point to go have a reasonable bond set. So if our law says we're entitled to a bond and our court cases say it should be reasonable, I always think it's funny when you don't give a PR bond to someone who's in the community, been there all his life, has family there, and you might say as a judge, $10,000 bond. And I'm thinking of so many of my clients can't pay the light bill. So where are they going to come up with $1,000 to give to a bonding service? So there are options. I like to look at it like this. The best option is sometimes if your child is, let's just say your child's given a $50,000 bond, $75,000 bond. And you're going to have to go pay, if the judge gives a surety bond saying he wants a company to, back that bond. Why pay that company they charge 10 to 15%. So $5,000 to $10,000 based on a $50,000 to $70,000 bond, $75,000 bond. Why pay them that money? Sometimes you just go talk to your lawyer. Your child is in jail or your friend's in jail screaming and hollering. The best one is mama, get me out. Grandmama, get me out. You got to get me out of here. And I've looked at people before and said, with these charges, he's probably going to do some time. With his record, he may do time. So why are you going to pay a bonding company and lose that money? Right. Pay me or go hire an attorney. Or sometimes we can maybe ask the court to let us put that money up as his bond, and then he can assign that to his lawyer. So you're not losing money by spending. I've had clients sometimes spend more to get their child out than the legal fee that I was going to charge was going to be. And I like it a lot better when they put their own money up if I can get a judge to allow that. And sometimes they will. So that when it's over, I get paid, they get back money, and we're not sitting here not being able to hire a good lawyer because we spent so much money getting him out of jail to start with. Okay, that's one thing I like to look at. Other things that I say, you do get credit for time served. So sometimes if you're in jail, and it takes us 30 days or so to get a lawyer hired, to get another hearing in front of another judge to try to address the bond. It's not when you're getting the credit, sometimes it makes it easier to get to plea deals that we'll talk about in a little bit. As I said, the thing I like about if you can't get a judge to let you put your own money up, you've got the 10% bond that you're going to, the 10, 15% you're going to pay a bonding company. In some cases, you can get your family, parents, grandparents, or others to put up property. That's a little harder to do because when they let you put your property up, they make you look at the assessed value of the property, which is a lot less on the tax maps than it might be worth for the tax rolls. And then they take out things like homestead exemption, which is $50,000 in South Carolina, and they take out mortgage balances. So you may think you have a $250,000 house, but you only maybe have $100,000 in equity. But you got to get that done, and you got to get a title search done quickly to let that be put up. But that's another way friends or family can do it. Now, some people don't stay on good enough terms with friends and family for them to want to put their neck out for you. The problems that we get sometimes with bonds is not the amount, but sometimes the restrictions or conditions on it. We have some judges that put a GPS monitor, ankle monitor on people. You know, that sounds like great. He's out of jail. He can go to work. Well, he's making $15 an hour, and the ankle monitor company's charging 80 and 90 bucks a week to have this on. It stays on. Sometimes in domestic violence, where I know you said, Lynn, that you do a lot of domestic violence counseling. They'll put them sometimes in no contact orders.
Yes.
And they'll put on GPS monitoring, and you're looking at, you can't see your wife and kids. You're trying to maintain the household she's in, an apartment where you are, or helping your mom or grandma pay the bills where you're staying. And it just gets to a point where you can't even keep your house.
Yes.
So we have that. We have those no contact orders, like I said, a lot of times in domestic cases, that isn't the wife not wanting contact or the husband not wanting contact. It's just some ridiculous bond restriction that's put in every single case. And some of these, I've seen them in certain towns, they're in every single case.
Yes.
And I've had to be hired to represent the victim, the wife, to go to court to represent her and get her away from the victim's advocate coordinators, because she wanted her husband home. And she said the wrong person went to jail. She caused the fight.
Wow.
I started it, with what I was doing. Yes, I wouldn't let him leave the house, and he pushed me out of the way, and I bit my lip in the process. But I wanted my husband out of jail. It took us literally a year, because the first bond, when we went in to do that, he was not taking any anger management. So he started taking anger management. We had 6 months before we could go back again. I'm representing the woman who wanted her husband home. It was a complete nightmare, but we finally got him home a few weeks before Christmas. And as we walked out the courtroom, an email hit my desk, which didn't matter. I was out of case now, but hit the husband's lawyer's desk that he was the first case up on the February docket. They hadn't tried to get this case into court in over a year. And here that, so sometimes it's prosecutors that sometimes just have a vendetta, and every certain type case is horrible. Every possession with intent to distribute is horrible when you know the person's not a drug dealer, but you're going to sit there and put him on an ankle monitor to keep him there, or some college sex charge. Everybody's drunk, but some boy gets charged with criminal sexual conduct, and he's out of school. He's on an ankle monitor. Stay within don't get within 500 or 1,000 feet of her. You're in a small community where you go to Walmart, you're probably within 1,000 feet of her. So I've seen a lot of those nightmare type things happen. When you get past this and you've got them out, or even if they're still in jail, as I said, you just say we're gonna buy some time. But if you get them out of jail, the thing you got to do is make sure that your clients, and this is hard on the family. Sometimes you got to tell them you can't hang around with the same people anymore. You can't smoke marijuana or continue to drink alcohol, hang out in these clubs. Your bond says you've got to stay clean.
Yeah.
So many times I've walked into a courtroom with a client that I told them from day one, with your record, you've got to get off drugs. Stop. Don't do it again. You got to be clean. I know who we can get in front of. These 2 or 3 judges, they will ask for a drug test. And if you pass it, I'm going to walk you out of it. And I've literally had somebody say, I was in the car with people last night that were smoking. So I may have some secondhand smoke. Or I smoked because I wasn't sure if I was going to jail or not. So I guess I wanted to have one more party. And I'm like, you're kidding. Um,
Wow.
those things happen. The thing that the family left behind gets is they've got the children,
Yes.
that now, let's just say if you're charged with a drug thing and you're, even if you get out on bond, what about if the Department of Social Services comes in because when they came and issued a search warrant at your house, that's where your kids reside. And now you're getting your kids taken by the Department of Social Services, and you're looking and hoping that grandmama or aunt has had a good enough relationship with y'all that she will take those children, or that the department will let her take those children instead of putting them in foster care. The truck has to go back when you're not working, and if you're kept in jail. So I mean, there's all kind of consequences that we don't even think about until I say we, the defendant, until the defendant sitting in jail and saying, "I'm gonna lose my truck. I'm gonna lose my house."
Yes.
So I don't know what. I guess I'll open myself up. Y'all ask me if you want me to go a certain direction at this point. Plea deals, maybe.
Yes, I wanted the plea deals are important, but you mentioned something that you just said something that is so important, that when you put your money up for a bond, if you don't, um, if you're not doing what you're not, if you do something you're not supposed to do, the bond is revoked and the parent loses, or the loved one loses that money, right?
That's correct. The judge can take all of it, part of it,
Wow.
whatever. A bonding company, sometimes these bonding companies all of a sudden ask you to call them every Friday. And if you don't call them, sometimes they say, "Hey, I've been paid. He's not calling me. I'm just going to go tell the judge I want off the bond." Now
Wow.
you can maybe get put back in. But South Carolina, we just passed a law that was signed in March that says if you're out on a bond for a violent offense that you could be innocent of, and you get charged with another violent offense that maybe you're guilty of, that you can get a 5-year sentence just for being out on bond and committing another violent offense. 5 years could be consecutive to the prior sentence if you get one. So now we're starting to stack them up to where you can't even run them together. You got to finish one sentence to start the second. And these violent offenses a lot of times are 85%.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
parole type offenses.
And can I ask you a question? They reduced it federally to 65% of the sentence time. It has been in legislature to go to the state level to reduce the sentence to 65%, because on the state level, they're still doing the 85%. Where is that now? Is it
I,
still in?
I'm going to tell you, I would say that it's going to take a lot of work to make a lot of southern states change a lot of these 85% rules and service times. Here's one thing that you see a lot of times. You're never going to see prosecutors and victims' rights type groups go after judges that are very strict sentencers, very harsh sentences. Sometimes you'll see them come after judges that are lenient sentencers.
Okay.
That's happened a little bit recently in South Carolina.
Okay.
They last, I guess, 2 years ago, when there were a lot of judges going through judicial screening or going through screening again to be reelected for another term, were faced with questions from citizens committees. And one of the questions was, "What's the hardest thing that you do as a judge?" And they said the citizens committee report was that most judges said setting bonds. And the
Wow.
reason being, I think it got to be a hot topic. One particular gentleman was let out. It could have looked like me, any of y'all. Um, he had been in a domestic violence situation, had no prior record, you know, working in the same place for dozens of years. And when he got out on bond, he killed his wife. And nobody saw it coming. But who gets written in the paper? Well, the judge who let him out on his own recognizance should be held responsible. And that makes the hair on the back of the judge's neck and all judges' neck rise. And you're like, maybe we need to look at this a little harder. But it's hard. How do you know who's going to go kill their spouse? As this case ended up being a terrible, terrible situation. But how do you see that in a businessman? You don't, unless he's been in Lynn's office and she can shed light on it.
Yeah. That's something. That is something. I mean, and you also said go to your attorney that and don't focus on these TV ads and things of that of somebody you don't know. Is it a good idea to also call the bar to, just get, to see how it?
No, I don't think you'll get anywhere with the bar. You're going to
Okay.
get they have referral services.
Okay.
But I believe that I can pick up the phone. If Lee was to call me and say, I need a lawyer in Memphis, Tennessee,
Mhm.
I can get on a couple of email chat groups that we're in, and I can say, Memphis, Tennessee, where do we start? And I'll get a name or two, and I'll feel comfortable that that person at least is going to be able to give good advice. And it's not someone that just hung a shingle coming out of school and says that they've done this. Um, I'm one of those that has always taken the position that my clients, I want them to get what they want out of me. And that's, you know, full service, straight on, honesty from the beginning. I don't want to get hired. I'm not going to tell you a lie to take your money. I've been doing this too long. I want you to know going in, this is a case that we're probably going to have to work out. You've got a bad record and this doesn't look good, or they may have told me that I did this, but here's why. And, um, so I look at these things and I say, let's figure out the only way I can make any waves out here is I got to find out why you did this. What made you start this life of whether it's crime, whether it's abuse, physical abuse, whatever with your spouse, with children, with neighbors. I mean, are you into drugs? And you got to go back honestly as far as you can. And I've found out that at 10 years old, my daddy was riding around smoking weed in the car and introduced me to it. And I'm like thinking, a father introducing a daughter at 10 years old to
10. Wow.
When you start talking about some people that have some, you look around the neighborhood, it's like all the family's been to prison over and over and over. And you were taught as a small child to shoplift. In fact, judges are getting really strict on punishing people who go shoplifting and have their little child stealing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're putting them in jail for a lot longer than just if they get caught stealing. But I've been one that says I got to dig back. I got to go talk to the counselor. I have to talk to grandmama, grandpa, or sometimes I have to get that big guy that's sitting across the table from me that could beat me up 27 days in a row without me getting a punching on him. And I have to look at these people and talk to them and care about them enough to hear why they started what they did. And it's amazing when a grown man that could kill you starts crying and tells you what messed his life up at what point. Sometimes, believe it or not, and I've had it probably 5% of my cases, it's been no relationship with one of the parents.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it just breaks your heart when you're looking at this guy and saying, man, you've been in prison all these times. And I'm thinking, because you have no relationship with your mother or your father. And I don't understand that. None of us probably understand that. But it's there. But if you can peel that onion back and find out what has taken place in the life, and if the person will be honest and open up to a lawyer, that's when you get your best plea deals because you know what you're talking about. And if you don't get a great plea deal, sometimes you get in front of a judge and you have a prosecutor not really trying to do anything other than let you work the room. And I've had judges look at me and say, Pete, here's one thing I'll tell you. When you come in and you plead some case and there's a range of, 0 to 8 years, you literally tell us more than we ever want to hear. And I'm not going to be cut off. I'm going to just explain it in a very succinct way. And you've got a judge that says, well, son, I see why you messed up, and I'm going to give you a chance to do better this time. And you do get a better deal. Now, one thing about plea deals that I'll say to your audience, what scares me about plea deals is lawyers that don't understand their client. If I've got a client that can't pass a drug test and is never going to pass a drug test, and I know they can't, I represent them right now. The last thing I'm going to do is go get him a quick maximum sentence, 5 years, and you got a prosecutor saying 5 years suspended to 5 years of probation, and if you take that, we'll give it to you. And come on, the judge is here. There are lawyers that run and take that. I'm looking at my client and saying, wow. You pass a drug test, you're not going to pass a drug test. Are you going home, getting your bond money back, or having this case off of your head, off your record? It doesn't do you any good. I'd rather you just turn around and tell me that you're never going to quit smoking weed cocaine or crack or whatever you're doing. And then I can go in and say, you know what? I don't want 5 years over his head. He's going to fail within 6 months. He's in prison for up to 5. I'd rather go in there and say, hey, how about give me 12 months? Give me 12 months. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, well, you can get me 12 months, I'll take it. Prosecutor says, sure, I'm getting the right that I sent somebody to prison. But it's a lot better to get somebody to get them in jail and out in maybe 6 or 7 when they do all their time and their good time or whatever. It's so much better for them to go do a little time and not have probation over their head. I can't stand it when I see lawyers, young lawyers sometimes, take a plea, 10 years suspended to 5 years probation. I'm like, 5 years probation for a guy that's been in trouble a few times in life? He's going to fail. You've set him up to go to prison for a long time. You've set him up to not watch his children grow up. You've set him up to be dumping his children with mama and grandmama, lose his house, lose his car, lose his job, and be a felon in those types of cases, which means when you get out, it's hard to get a job. So now you live a life of crime because you can't support yourself.
Exactly.
That's true.
But it takes someone that's done it a lot that'll work for you, And sometimes if they just sit there and say, for instance, I didn't do this, and I look at them and I say, I like it when it's a 5-year, 10-year max or something, and it's maybe not 85%. And I'm looking and saying, okay, here's the options. We go to trial. You win, we walk out here together. You lose, we're probably going to do 3 or 4 years of a max sentence if we even get a max sentence. And you got to be able to honestly assess all that to take clients, because I don't want them to leave their family for a long time. I don't like them to go to jail at all, but some do.
So once you take a plea deal, Attorney Diamaduros, there is no early out. Like, you can't be released early because you had good behavior or whatever. You have to do the entire plea deal. And then when you get out, there is no parole. You have done your time and you're out, right?
Yes, but when you say when we talk about a plea deal, I like to look at them as just negotiations.
Right. Okay.
If the prosecutor says, and they've said this before, Diamaduros is crazy enough to take this case to trial. And but if they know I'm not scared to go to trial, and if my client wants a trial, the only way that they're not going to get, you're not going to get me in a courtroom, and we're not going to have a chance at winning this case, is they're going to have to offer me something that my client's happy with, or that I might think that my client should take. And that could be where the sentence is 25 years, and we get 3 or 4, and the client says, I can handle that. I can take that. My favorite clients have been to prison before. Because you know what? They know what they can do. And they come in and look at me and they're like, hey, you get me less than 5 years, I'm good. And I turn around and start negotiating a little bit, and I call them up and say, I got you 36 months. I mean, they're hugging me going into the courtroom, and I'm like, I don't understand this. You're getting locked up in a facility that my wife wouldn't put our dogs in. You wouldn't put my dog in a room for 23 hours a day most of the time, and you're happy to go there. But I mean, some people live that life, but we want them. These plea deals, you do get your good time. You do get all that. If we do a plea deal for 3 years, for instance, they're not going to do 3 years. They're going to do whatever. You get some good time. You get let's just say 3 years. They might do a year and a half. Sometimes the problem that I have is in drug cases where people are really addicted to drugs and they keep possession with intent, or they're possession with intent because they're trying not to be with drug dealers every day. So they buy a little more so they don't have to keep going back, once a month instead of every week. To get into these drug treatments in our prison system, you almost need about a 4-year sentence to be able to be in there for maybe 2 so that you can get in the classes and all, in the addiction and treatment unit or whatever. It's just hard to get in because so many people in prison are there because of drugs. Drugs brought on everything else. So there's a line, and some people all of a sudden they're told your time is up. Do you want to stay in here and go into this program, or are you ready to go home? I'm going home. So they go home, and it didn't get any better.
Since COVID, they delayed a lot of those classes as well. That rehabilitation is not really there, and it should be there, so the social justice movement is there for the rehabilitation. My son is certified in South Carolina to be a peer support for substance abusers and things of that nature in that program. And since COVID, it is really on hold. They have not really started it back up again. And now we're facing, the COVID uptick again. And, so all of some of those programs are still on hold. You mentioned some other things that I wanted to touch on. Learned behaviors. Yes. Children learn from their environment. And you talked about a father, teaching the daughter, hey, smoke some weed. These are learned behaviors. You also talked about, you know, um, things from the past. And when I counsel with inmates or former inmates, that is so true because they have chapters still open from the past that have never had any closure. And it's manifesting in their behavior in their adult life. So I thank you for your honesty and for your, really helping people in depth, and that it's something so you deal with them, you understand more about them once you dig into that past and they're forthcoming with that information.
Lynn, I tell you, this is something that's interesting too. When I get domestic violence cases,
Uh-huh.
they are very hard to move
Yeah.
because a lot of prosecutors are there on federal grants. No, we don't cut deals on these things. Go to court, lose the case. I've been told, "Oh, you're going to win this case. It's going to trial." I'm like, I lost the best factual case of my life. So I don't trust juries always doing the right thing.
Yes.
So don't tell me that, or that you need you haven't tried but 3 cases in your life and you're a young lawyer and you want to try a case against me. My client doesn't deserve that. Let's get this figured out. But what I like to do on domestic violence is I like to pick up the phone. I say, get in my office right now. We're going to talk about something.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to go sign up with Lynn, and you're going to take 26 weeks of anger management, domestic violence, spouses battering treatment programs, whatever you want to call it. Around here, they had one. I really like the name of it. Family, you just can't beat them. And I thought,
I like that.
what a silly name. But I'd say, go to this place. And they're like, but I didn't do anything. And I'm like, I don't care if you did it or not. If you got, this is what they want. They want you to plead guilty to this crime. They want you to do 26 weeks of some sort of domestic violence counseling classes. They want you to be on some sort of probation, pay a fine, whatever. They want that checked off. If we do everything, we do 26 weeks, by the time they come to me and want to start talking about going to trial, I'm going to look at them and say, he's already done the treatment. He's already, he can pay a fine. We don't want domestic violence on his record. You cut it down to something else. We'll take a deal on something else. And I had a client of mine, and I think it costs $20 a week to go to almost all these programs in the upstate of South Carolina. I had one look at me and say, so many people in these classes don't want to be there. If they're a group class, they don't want to be there, and they're kind of angry, and they're, mostly men, so they're all hollering about how they got arrested and shouldn't have been arrested. And this guy looks at me and says, when I'm paying $20, I'm participating, and I'm getting my money's worth. And he said, that was the best thing I've ever done in my life. Let me tell you why. Because I didn't do anything that I should have been arrested for, and it all worked out. But I learned that now when I go to family gatherings and the alcohol gets going and the chatting starts and picking on this one or that one starts, I know how to diffuse the situation, and I know how I'm going to leave the room, and nobody's going to see me arguing and cussing and getting mad and leaving out of a holiday. So I thought it was amazing that someone would say, I'm paying $20, I'm getting $20 worth.
That's right.
Where others are just there, just checking the box and not learning anything.
It's so interesting, how you can mediate things. I am a mediator, and I've been a mediator since 2006. And when you sit down, we connect with Florida Restorative Justice. And when you sit down and you listen to their practice of let's mediate, let's facilitate, let's work things out, it is so effective. But most people don't know about that. And that's why what you're talking about now is great education, because these are the things you didn't know that could have helped you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you said about that. There's a new cash bond system. Are you familiar with it? That is all. And I know one of the states.
We don't, our system, it has that cash element that I talked about. where
Okay.
you can put your own cash down that you can use to pay your lawyer in the end or pay restitution. But we don't have those
Okay.
things that have taken place in where California and places like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was in Iowa, one of the states that we saw, and we, wanted to touch on that. You do have some questions here. It says, I appreciate your honesty and in depth knowledge of your client. You are a lawyer who sees the client and not the dollar sign. Uh,
You know,
Pete,
if you see the clients, you're going to get the dollars if that's
yeah,
what you're out
there
for.
you go.
Mm-hmm.
Pete, let's see. Uh, Diamaduros and Sammy are the best lawyers in town. They are honest with you. If they can't take the case, they will find someone for you. I thank God for these guys. They helped me out with my son. So, you do have law partners in other places as well, right? Where
I,
if somebody can call you, you can connect them, as you said, Tennessee and places.
I can do that, but also in South Carolina, there are areas that I don't touch on, and I need to get you to someone that can handle this. I don't
Yes.
care if it's an employment situation, whether it's a bankruptcy situation, all these things. I don't. I can't do everything. I can't do everything well, but I know where to send you. And I've actually told people before, why in the world did you go hire that lawyer? You could have called me and I would have told you who to go to, and I would have picked somebody different
Right.
because I know you and I know what you need. So I've always said I can't do every case that walks in
Yes.
my door, but I will send you where I think you need to go if I don't handle it.
That's wonderful. I just appreciate that because all lawyers aren't like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
Lee and I, we have preferred attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney Gurley is like that. He's so wonderful and breaking it down and educating us on everything. Lee, would you like to comment on what he has said this
I
evening?
think with the Diamaduros law firm and the partner he has is his brother. So I
Oh,
think it's
wonderful.
about relationship and reputation.
Yeah.
Just this past weekend, I was speaking with someone, telling them about the Facebook Live
Mhm.
and saying, come on, we're going to have this local attorney to listen or so. And not knowing, but the gentleman said to me, oh, I know him. He's dealt with he's dealt a case for me, and let me tell you, I got a lot less time than what I would have if I
Wow.
had not have him. And I was like, oh wow, because I didn't know. So that's wonderful, and I know of other instances with cases that you have and stuff, and you develop relationships with these people, and
Yeah.
like you say, once you get into, you have to talk to them and find out, go deep and get that gut out of them before you know where you need to go with them and stuff. And I appreciate that part of you because a lot of times attorneys don't do that. They hit that surface, they see the sign that you make your next payment. We're going to do what we're going to do. There's so much time between that they're sitting arrested before they get to court sometime. And that's a mental area also that is affected with sitting and stuff that I don't know if it's local to the states or to the area or what, but sometimes that's a mental factor also. But the relationship that you and your partners have. And I know that you're also you have two adult children that they are coming or following in your footsteps also
Wow.
in the area of law, which is great also. So it's a family of law there and stuff.
You
So
know, you touched on something that makes me want to follow up with this. There are times when I am representing someone in cases, especially during COVID, even got older. So sometimes you're looking at a case and you've held it for 4 or 5 years. I've got criminal defendants that call me and want to talk. When's my case coming up? And I'm like, don't call me. Every time you do that, you jinx it. They're gonna put it on the docket. Just let it sit. The older they get, the better. Not meaning that they get old and the prosecutor forgets about them, but you're showing to the prosecution that you made a mistake in 2020, and it's been 3 years, and you have not even had a speeding ticket. So now we can walk in and say he's kind of been on bond for 3 years. He hasn't done anything. That shows you that he is a good guy. He can do well on some probation and not need any jail time. So sometimes it works out. Don't get in trouble. That's the key. Quit. You're out on bond. Change your life, change your friends, change your.
That is
thank you.
so important to do. When they get out, they have to change everything. You can't go back to the old behaviors
Mm-hmm.
because this system is set up, recidivism, going right back in there. you know?
Mhm.
So it is like that. We just appreciate everything. Somebody said probation versus plea deal is good and excellent advice. Thank you so much for that information. So probation versus plea deal.
Well, that probation, is that part of the deal?
So, sometimes it can be, but my main point I think was the issue of saying if I don't think you're going to make probation, we don't need a lot of time over your head. We need to take an option. Do you want 5 years suspended on 5 years probation, or do you want to go on and take a period of time that might be a straight sentence of 6 months, a year, 18 months, and be done? I've had people before look and say, "Do whatever you can do. I can't do probation. Just get me whatever you can do." And that's when we start talking. We don't want a bunch of time hanging over our head. We don't want to have a judge look and say, I'm taking the whole 5 years that you had over your head and I'm giving them to you now.
Yes.
I'd rather them get a short deal on the front end to do some active time and be done. In some
Yeah.
cases, other people know. I mean, I've had people look at me and say, this is something that's interesting. And if you tell prosecutors this, they don't believe it sometimes. But I had a client look at me and say, for someone who's never been arrested, a day in jail is a freaking lifetime. And he said, I got a year in federal prison and I was at an Air Force base and I couldn't cross lines, but there was no fence. He said, and if you think that was easy, that was awful. He said, I would have rather had a fence I couldn't climb over with a razor wire. He said, knowing I could have stepped across that line and just walked down the street anytime was horrible. So, but the thing that bothers me about our community now is that there's every year it becomes less and less a stigma to be in prison. And,
Yeah.
and like you said, you're going to prison. Grandpa went to prison. Uncle went to prison. Grandma went. Or grandmamas don't ever go to jail, really. Aunt, somebody went to prison, and all of a sudden you got children that they don't. Big deal if we go to prison. Everybody in the family's been to prison, and that's not a white black thing. That's a community. That's a United States problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody just they go to prison, and the kids. Why not? I tell some of my clients sometimes, you got these two children. You got a little girl and a little boy, 12 and 10, for instance, and you're about to go to jail. If you don't change your life, what are they going to do? They're going to do the same thing you've been doing. They're going to do drugs. They're going to run around. I mean, I love some of Deion Sanders' speeches
Yeah.
that he's been given
Yeah.
lately about not being baby daddies, but being fathers.
Yes. Yeah.
Get something in your life besides just running in the streets. Um,
Exactly. That's so true. But you know what bothers me more than anything? It's not that just the adults are arrested. Here in Florida, we've had 6-year-olds put in handcuffs. Now that's traumatizing. We've had young children. Social justice reform. I've never seen children arrested before and handcuffed and put in the back of a patrol car. That bothers me, so I know it bothers the parents. How can you arrest a 6-year-old?
Well, sometimes we look and say, the 6-year-old who's been told that the policeman is who he goes to when he's got a problem, and now a policeman is putting him in the car. Sometimes he has to say, sometimes we got to say, maybe the pay needs to be raised so you bring in better quality.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never seen something like that happen. I think I'd heard recently that something similar did happen, and
Hmm.
it ended up with a pretty nice lawsuit
Yeah.
settlement.
Yeah. It was.
Like you say, well, you're going to spend it all with the counselor to get the kids' head straightened out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's just, I think it was 6, or there have been some young children handcuffed and taken, and it just the trauma that they face as a young child. I don't remember the particulars, but you can Google that. And it says a comment here, you are a teaching lawyer. We need more like you. Your plans to improve your client's character while waiting is life-changing and gives them a hope that they may not have thought possible.
Amen.
Again, that
Mhm.
speaks kudos to who you are in your character,
Mhm.
trying to look out for others and improve their character. And you don't find that a lot. Attorney Gurley, he's the same way, he's a teaching lawyer. And that's what you want. You want that
Mhm.
compassion. You want that. You're looking at the good in the person and not only at that offense. So that speaks kudos. A good name is better than anything else.
Well, you know why I said you got to find the lawyer that knows how to do that, because there are plenty of us that care. You got to take your time. But I
Yeah.
kind of I grew up working in a restaurant with an immigrant dad. Most of my friends growing up, my high school buddies and all also worked with me, and a lot of them were from the housing projects and subsidized housing. I'm in a community where it doesn't matter if I'm in Spartanburg, Greenville, or Columbia, or my smaller hometown where my office is. I run into my clients out and I see them. I'm terrible with names, but I'm good with faces. But I care about them because I do see them around, and I eat in the same restaurants they eat in. I shop in the same stores. My son played baseball from the time he was 5 years old until he went through college. And so I've come into contact with every walk of life in my personal life, my coaching life when I coach my kid and some of his teams, and in my professional life. So I do. I try to care about these people. Hey, God's been good to me. I've had a great career. I've met a lot of people along the way. I've got people out there that are friends of mine. I actually had somebody say this. I'm not trying to pat myself in the back, but I had somebody say, I didn't know that you hung out with people like that. And I'm like, with people. Nothing like that. People are
Right.
people.
That's right.
And I think I've always done that. And that came from my daddy, who Lee knows well. Daddy loved everybody. And still does. He's almost 93 years old, so he's got a lot of people he loves.
Yep.
Wow. Well,
So,
we
Great
just
following.
thank you for your honesty. We thank you for your helping spirit that you have, that God has given you. And we would love for you to come back again, because the system is always evolving into this and that, and explanations are needed. We're going to come to South Carolina. We would definitely, you're going to be our partner there, where you're going to be one of our preferred lawyers. You see how I'm giving you that right now,
thank you. I'll
and I'm
take it.
sure I'm sure that our clients would love to talk with you. And you have someone here that says yes, he does. Pete Diamaduros is amazing, caring individual, is a true servant of the Lord. God gave you that
Look at
purpose.
that.
He
Don't
gave
make
you
me
that
cry now.
mission.
Don't make me
So
cry saying that.
look, God always connects his people. So
Mhm.
as Lee is right there, we're now connected. Okay.
Yeah.
God connected our spirits together to help. And that's what God put us up to, is helping individuals. So
Mhm.
we want people that help others with us as well. So again, we thank you.
Mhm.
Lee, would you like to say anything? And again, attorney, do you want to say anything else?
I've said all I need to say. I'll be glad to come back
Thank
sometime
you.
on another topic.
Thank you.
I just wanted to touch on one thing. We were talking about the cash bail, and the state that eliminated that or kind of got rid of that was Illinois.
Illinois, yeah.
Okay, Eleanor.
And there are other states that perhaps didn't get rid of it, but they've done some different things with it. I know the state of New York has a supervised release program. So they're doing different things, and even though they might not have gotten completely rid of it, we want something like that in South Carolina. We know the South is very tough, so it's going to be work in order to
Mhm.
do it. And when we were talking about kids or the young ones in reference to the things that they do and stuff, I remember a case in New York where there was a 16-year-old that was arrested because he took a backpack or something like that. And because the time frame between being arrested and going to court was so long, this kid went through so much, and it has some effects that it play on you and stuff too. He couldn't bail out or anything and stuff. So it took a very long time. They ended up dropping the case, but what happened was this young person, after he was released or they dropped the case and stuff and he went home, he ended up killing himself.
Yeah.
Oh my
Terrible stories.
Yeah, terrible story. So we have to be there. But to say that is to say that if there was a Pete Diamandouros that had that case, perhaps it would have gone a different way. So keep doing what you're doing, Pete.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Yes, we do. We so appreciate you. And Learning Journey, we appreciate you. We know you're on the healing journey, but we appreciate you so much. Take what he has said, use that, write it down, help somebody who might have somebody who knows somebody that is, on their way to be arrested. Maybe you can help. We are here if you need prayer, whatever you
Mhm.
need. Lee and I are here. You can
Yes.
inbox us. We are here. We know that some people want to keep it private, so we don't advertise
Mhm.
who we help. We honor your confidentiality, but we just thank you for supporting us in our program, and we're hoping to grow. Again, we're a nonprofit, 501c3, so we work off of donations. And we do have our race coming up. You can find us on Instagram, and you can find us. We have our race that's coming up January the 13th. Come out and support us. We appreciate you. And until the next 14 days, we hope that you will be in perfect peace and keep your mind stayed on him. And again, we thank you all, and we will see you another time. Good night, everybody.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye bye.